Hey, friends. You know who's friends again? Aslan with Edmund, and Peter and Susan and Lucy with Edmund. They all got back together, right? Aslan had a good talk with Edmund. We may never know what he said, but they are all back to friends again. Edmund said he was sorry, and Peter, Susan, and Lucy just said, "We forgive you. It's all right. It's fine." And I love how they said this. Before it got awkward, a leopard came and said, "I have a message." Here's what the message was. "Sire, there is a message from the enemy who craves an audience." "Let him approach," said Aslan. The leopard went away and soon returned, leading the witch's dwarf. Remember that dwarf that turned into a little stump? "What is your message, son of earth?" asked Aslan. "The Queen of Narnia and Empress of the Lone Islands desires a safe conduct to come and speak with you," said the dwarf, "on a matter which is as much to your advantage as to hers." "Queen of Narnia, indeed," said Mr. Beaver. "Of all the cheek—" "Peace, Beaver," said Aslan. "All names will soon be restored to their proper owners. In the meantime, we will not dispute about them. Tell your mistress, son of earth, that I will grant her safe conduct on the condition she leaves her wand behind her at the great oak tree." This was agreed to, and the two leopards went back with the dwarf to see that the conditions were properly carried out. "But supposing she turns the two leopards into stone," whispered Lucy to Peter. I think the same idea had occurred to the leopards themselves. At any rate, as they walked off, their fur was standing up on their backs, and their tails were bristly like a cat's when it sees a strange dog. So the leopards were the messengers going back and forth, and Lucy's like, "But what if the witch turns them into statues?" But they were okay. "It'll be all right," whispered Peter in a reply. He wouldn't send them if they weren't. He trusted Aslan, didn't he? A few minutes later, the witch herself walked out to the top of the hill and came straight across and stood before Aslan. The three children, who had not seen her before, felt shudders running down their backs at the sight of her face, and there were low growls among the animals that were present. Have you ever seen in a movie or something where somebody comes out and everybody goes, "Ooh"? That's kind of how the animals are, like, "Arr." They did not like her. Though it was bright sunshine, everybody felt suddenly cold. The only two people present who seemed to be quite at their ease were Aslan and the witch herself. It was the oddest thing to see those two faces, the golden face and the dead white face, so close together. Not that the witch looked Aslan exactly in the eyes. Mrs. Beaver particularly noticed this. "You have a traitor here, Aslan," said the witch. Of course, everyone present knew that she meant who? Edmund. But Edmund had got past thinking about himself. After all, he'd been through, and after the talk that he had that morning, he just went on looking at Aslan. So he was not being selfish anymore. He wasn't thinking about himself. He was just like, "I'm just going to look to Aslan and see what is right." It didn't seem to matter what the witch said to Edmund. "Well," said Aslan, "his offense was not against you." "Have you forgotten the deep magic?" asked the witch. "Let us say I have forgotten it," said Aslan gravely. "Tell us of this deep magic." "Tell you," said the witch, her voice growing suddenly shriller, "tell you what is written on the very stone table which stands beside us. Tell you what is written in letters deep as a spear and as long as the firestones on the secret hill. Tell you what is engraved in the scepter of the emperor beyond the sea. You at least know the magic which the emperor put into Narnia at the very beginning. You know that every traitor belongs to me as my lawful prey, and that for every treachery I have a right to a kill." So he's saying there's been something set up from the beginning of time that the evil people will belong to the witch. All right. And if those people go away, then she has the right to kill them. Ooh, no, poor Edmund. "Oh," said Mr. Beaver, "so that's how you came to imagine yourself as a queen, because you were the Emperor's hangman, I see." "Peace, Beaver," said Aslan with a very low growl. "And so," continued the witch, "that human creature is mine. His life is forfeit to me. His blood is my property." "Come and take it," said the bull with the man's head in a great bellowing voice. So the good animals, the ones that are on Aslan's side, they're all kind of standing up. "You try to take Edmund," which is so awesome. "Fool," said the witch with a savage smile that was almost a snarl, "do you really think your master could rob me of my rights by mere force? He knows the deep magic better than I. He knows that unless I have blood, as the law says, all Narnia will be overturned and perish in fire and water." Uh-oh. This is big serious stuff. "It is very true," said Aslan. "I do not deny it." "Oh, Aslan," whispered Susan in the lion's ear, "can't we, will you?" So she's confused and she's like, "Oh no, please don't let it be that you're going to give Edmund to the witch." "Can't we do something about the deep magic? Isn't there something you can do to work against it?" "Work against the Emperor's magic?" said Aslan, turning to her with something like a frown on his face. And nobody ever made that suggestion to him again. So Aslan kind of let them know, no, something's going to have to happen. Edmund was on the other side of Aslan, looking all the time at Aslan's face. He felt a choking feeling and wondered if he ought to say something. But the moment later, he felt that he was not expected to do anything except to wait and to do what he was told. So Edmund finally was like, "I'm just going to do what Aslan tells me." "Fall back, all of you," said Aslan, "and I will talk to the witch alone." They all obeyed. It was a terrible time, this waiting and wondering while the lion and the witch talked earnestly together in low voices. Lucy said, "Oh, Edmund," and began to cry. Peter stood with his back to the others, looking out at the distance. The beavers stood holding each other's paws, with their heads bowed. The centaurs stamped uneasily with their hooves. But everyone became perfectly still in the end, so that you noticed even the small sounds like the bumblebee flying past, or the birds in the forest down below them, or the wind rustling through the leaves. And still the talk between Aslan and the White Witch went on. At last they heard Aslan's voice. "You can all come back," he said. "I have settled this matter. She has renounced the claim on your brother's blood." And all over the hill there was a noise as if everyone had been holding their breath, had now begun breathing again, and then a murmur of talk. Have you ever done that where you just hold your breath and all of a sudden, whew? It was like if everybody did that together. "But how do I know this promise will be kept?" roared Aslan, half risen from his throne, and his great mouth opened wider, and the roar grew louder and louder, and the witch, after staring for a moment with her lips wide apart, picked up her skirt and fairly ran for her life. So he chased her off. So Aslan has said he's worked everything out. Edmund is going to be safe. But how can that be? How can that be that Edmund is now safe even though he's done wrong? And as far as the rules go in Narnia, he would belong to the witch. How do you think Aslan has worked this out? This is the real story. And that's going to start next Monday, all right? Don't miss his next couple of chapters. Next Monday, we're going to start telling what Aslan has done to free Edmund. All right, you guys? Reread this with your mom and dad if you'd like, because there was a lot of confusion going on through there, and it's hard when you're listening sometimes to be able to picture who is doing this and who's doing that. It'd be great if you guys are still illustrating too. Like, draw some of those characters. What do you think that bull with a man's head look like? What do you think the centaurs or the unicorns look like? What do you think some of the evil characters look like? All right, draw out some of those. Have your mom and dad reread that with you and draw out some of those pictures, because it'll really give you the picture of the good and the evil. And tomorrow, Saturday, we're going to do a project based on that. So I'll see you tomorrow.